Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining XROM podcast. Do kindly subscribe, support, and share India's first AR VR MR podcast. So, today I have with us Parul Wadhwa. She is a new media artist and immersive tech storyteller. She was an Oculus Launchpad Fellow in 2018. She is a director, producer, and builds virtual reality, augmented reality experiences, interactive art, digital storytelling, and games. She is committed to the use of AR, VR, MR for social impact. I wish you enjoyed this conversation.
So you've been a creative person. You've got a background in filmmaking. You've been with Yash Raj Films. You've been with the production house, I believe, in South Korea. And how come from a creative filmmaker? What was the transition? How did you get into immersive storytelling? Though I believe that the progression is natural because anybody who's a creative person, AR, VR, MR opens up the horizon for you to creatively tell story in a deeper way and impact people. So, but you need to be bold. Because I mean, we comfortable with or 2D medium. It's only the bold people like get into immersive storytelling. So tell me, what's been your journey?
There's been a lot of things here. Thank you, Eddie, for inviting me onto this podcast. I'm really excited to be talking about my journey. I think you guys are doing fabulous works. I want to congratulate you for being India's first XR festival and putting this forum together and this fantastic work that you're doing. So I'm really humbled and honored that you've asked me to speak over this podcast. I'd be happy to share my journey. And thank you for saying that, it's actually a bold step to be taking when you're moving from a creative side into doing XR storytelling. Well, I would just say that yes and no. I mean, it's a natural progression because, 360 or, virtual reality in general, cinematically is the next progression from 2D cinema. The reason I would call it bold is simply because it's an amalgamation of technology and art. And we would be stupid if we don't acknowledge that, art or cinema is not technology. Because if you look at it from from the time that the genesis of cinema itself, there were a lot of times that people used to be inhibited by the whole technology of the camera and the movie making itself. If you look at the earlier filmmakers, whether that's in India or elsewhere, so the whole technology was always there. Tech was always a huge part of art and cinema. And it's now, when you're talking about XR, is that it comes across as a very, in your face thing that you have to be a technologist in order to do XR and VR. I kind of disagree to that. I think that or for example, if I have to speak for myself or my colleagues who do similar work, immersive storytelling is just using techniques that are very, using a lot of developing techniques, using, learning how to create immersive programs or apps, using certain coding languages or certain game engines to then get the very same techniques of filmmaking into that. So the only reason that it differs is that it makes it very one-on-one. It's very immersive as compared to cinema, which is studio and just observing people, like you might be just observing me right now. So that's the only difference, and I find it very challenging, and so maybe that's the reason it's bold. And I thank you for the compliment.
You rightfully mentioned that is a part of art and cinema. I mean, so cinema has taken over 100 years to evolve. I mean, earlier it started from black and white, and then it moved to color. The sound also evolved from being mono to stereo. It moved on to 3D, IMAX, but it's largely been restricted to 2D. I think VR lets you jump out from the 2D and get into the 3D world and start interacting with your content. What was that play a role in nudging you to build immersive content?
That's a good question. I think that I started seeing problems in like the way people interact. So, quote unquote, with cinema. There are a lot of times that people start thinking about evaluation or measures or what has cinema done to you. If you go and watch a great documentary, what does it do to you? What are the measurable impacts, so to speak? And, because my work intersects a lot between social impact, I've dabbled a lot and experimented with different kinds of cinema before I decided that VR is my form of storytelling. The reason that, both these things kind of go together very well is the fact that something has happened to them or some kind of evaluation has happened, some kind of change has happened into your life. Whereas if you put them into a 3D environment, into an immersive environment, they are able to not just interact with the characters, but they have the ability to become the characters themselves. So the kind of work that I do is very participatory. For example, if I'm building characters, they're mostly researched a lot, and then the person who gets into those environments has the ability to become that character. If you were to see Star Wars or Void, you would become one of the characters, and you would actually feel that you are in that environment. So what it does to you is that it's very impactful.
Tell me though, I mean, AR, VR, MR is supposed to be the next big thing, But then at this point of time, I mean, it's taken a long time, to go. It's not even gone mainstream. There is still so many problems. So, what, according to you, is slowing down adoption? I feel that we again into the AR, VR winter, because there was the Quest came in, and then suddenly now things have gone quite. It's quite down. What are your views? I mean, is it the same around the world? Because at least in India, things looked a little bright, and then again, it's just gone quite dull. So, where does the industry stand at this point in time?
I'm so grateful that Facebook has kind of taken this onus of building this industry around virtual reality in a way. And Apple is doing the same with AR, let's say. When you say that big companies or big tech is investing big time, they are obviously interested in mass adoption. The reason for that is simple, because they want to monetize all the equipment that they're producing. And so it has to have really good content in order for it to be, mass adopted. I think experts like him would also say that the waves of emerging tech had come before as well, and there was no money invested by companies simply because they thought that the technology is not yet there. So, what was the technology we're talking about? They thought that the equipment is not yet there. They didn't have enough developers to create what could sustain the 3D content. So all of that was there in the first wave, which was like 5-10 years ago. So people started shunning AR, VR, and thought that, okay, this doesn't have really potential for storytelling, but maybe, we can commercialize it by building apps or doing things for the medical industry or the tourism industry. So storytelling sort of like took a backstage. Then what happened like 5 years earlier was that the game industry started adopting VR heavily. People like me or filmmakers started thinking that immersive storytelling has a huge chance here, because we can also use game engines and create stuff in that, and create 3D environments within that. The only difference is that within a game, it's very goal oriented. You're looking for the wins and the loses, and the player has to be moderated in a certain way. But in immersive storytelling, it's more of an exploration of a certain geography or a certain terrain, and it's issue based. There are other people who have created interesting pieces like the Holocaust experience in immersive storytelling and other things. So it's more, kind of inciting the viewer to get into a certain kind of environment and to experience what's happening around there. So then they saw potential, and which is why the company started reinvesting again, thinking we need probably equipment which can sustain this entertainment. But now at this point of time, it's a little wobbly again. Like Mark Zuckerberg would say that he had expected that VR would pick up at this point of time as we are speaking, but it did not. So what really prevented it? I would say there are a couple of things here. The industry, which is very content driven, like AR, VR, there's a dearth of content in this industry. First of all, people are coming from all walks of life, which is fantastic because they're bringing in different kinds of experience. Secondly, they're not trained to use these technologies, or they're not technologists who are using their creativity to build content. Oculus or HTC Vive or any of these big companies have stores which are not, which are very quality driven. So even if you want your content to be publishable on these platforms, it has to be really good. It has to go through a lot of parameters to be checked by their technologists. John Carmack, for example, does a very live feedback session in the Oculus Connect conferences. So you could be a developer, who's developing an immersive experience in virtual reality, and you can sign up for that session, and you can go, and he will give you live feedback as to why this content is not going to be published on Oculus platform, or has a high chance of publishing. The reason he does that is very interesting, because this industry is very niche. It's very important that we train our filmmakers, we train our content makers to do quality stuff so that the audience is attracted to it. So when you put a headset on somebody who's never experienced VR and they happen to see something which is very mediocre, chances are you have lost that audience once and forever. So the biggest problem here is is that first of all, the content makers are not very well trained. Second of all, there's not enough quality content for it, despite the fact that there's a lot of money which is going into the VR industry. But I would say not so much for immersive storytelling, but let's say for monetizing other things like, oh, how can we use this for the medical industry and train our
Right.
surgeons?
Right.
How can we use this for the tourism industry and get more tourists? Which is all great. You can monetize the VR content and you can monetize the headsets, but you're losing the edge when it comes to cinema.
I do agree with you that content is king, and I guess right now the powers that be are conveniently saying enterprise is the one which is going to get you all the bucks. So I guess people are jumping over there. But yes, content has been and will always be king. But then when you say good enough content, to create good enough content, this being a niche technology, I mean people are just discovering this technology. How do you create or build content in virtual reality? Because it's such a new medium. Everything goes for a toss, especially if you're a 2D filmmaker and then you're introduced to 360 filmmaking. Your head goes bonkers, because your frame is no longer just your this the 2D. It's your entire world is your canvas. So it's you have to just rethink, relearn, or relearn everything, because it's a completely new medium, and yes, it's expensive. You build content, it's expensive. Besides being expensive, you end up building the content. Where is the monetization platform? Where do you distribute this content? So these are big concerns which I think needs to be sorted. I think once the monetization and distribution is sorted, and then I guess there'll be more content creators who will jump onto the bandwagon and try to create quality content. But these are my personal views. Like, what are your views on that?
Thank you for taking that trajectory towards distribution. I think it's a very valid point. I would say the 3D pipeline is a little flawed, and I agree with you. Let's start from the very beginning. When you go to media and film schools, whether I mean in the U.S., of course, I was trained at a school which specifically focused on immersive storytelling, and I could transition into that. But how many schools in India, when you're talking about filmmaking or immersive, on media generally, has even have like one course on immersive storytelling? I would
Right.
probably say zero or one.
Right.
You could go to technology schools. I've found out, I was invited by University of Hyderabad, which has a film school which does like a little component on immersive storytelling. So technology schools are more open to adapting that,
Right.
and teaching their students how to think that way. But if you're not telling the new workforce that this is an opportunity, or you have to open your minds to think about that, it's not going to happen overnight. People, like I said, you have to challenge yourself, and it's first of all interesting and important to create that workforce. So if we go to schools and colleges, if we go to let's say if you're sitting in Bombay and you go to Whistling Woods, which has a lot of money apparently, and coax them that we need, this is the need of the hour, to teach our students immersive storytelling, because you as a school can invest money into it. We can teach our students game engines like Unity and Unreal. We can give them access to 360 cameras. We can teach them 3D modeling. We can teach them 3D art, and then we can teach them how to bring the traditional principles of storytelling and filmmaking into all of that, and then immersive cinema will happen. There's a huge dearth of content from from India specifically. You see a lot of 360 filmmakers who like you rightly said that it's a very expensive medium, but there are ways around it. For in the U.S., for example, YouTube does a fellowship program with its jump camera, which is a 360 camera. So you could be a filmmaker who's creating 360 content, and you can go to Google and say, I don't have access to expensive equipment, so I would like to apply for this fellowship, and they give you this very expensive 360 camera, which you can take out into the fields and create a very expensive, high quality cinematic VR experience and bring it back.
Right, but sorry for interrupting you, but I guess I think that qualifies for people. I mean, at least in US, because back in 2016, I think I got in touch with them for the same thing. We could do something together and be part of the fellowship program, but we didn't get any response. So in the end, actually, we had to build our own 16 camera rig and shot horror short film.
No, I absolutely agree. The reason for that, I would say, and I'm not defending them, is the fact that companies, big companies, if I'm talk about this, four big companies are also investing and trying to see if this is going to work. So the first terrain to see is that if it's going to work is like, okay, let's put this money into the US filmmakers and then we'll see how it happens. But when you go to film festivals, they're like, well, where's the content from India? We're interested to see. For me, it's easier access because I'm sitting here and doing that stuff. So access for me is not a problem. There's no dearth of investment when it goes to immersive storytelling in India. Bollywood is the richest industry after Hollywood, and it's survived the rest of the industries. I've worked in different film industries, even Korea, and hasn't survived Bollywood. So it says a lot of things about about the Indian gutso spirit that we kind of have a very different way of telling stories, and it latches on to people. So I think that's the strength, and that this industry has money. So we just need to go to the big players and say, we need to convince them that they should be willing to invest and experiment. As a filmmaker, I would concentrate on audience generation because that's how you can monetize and think about creative ways in which you can distribute projects. Companies here have distribution platforms like the Oculus platform or the HTC Vive or the gaming platforms like Steam. So you can monetize content on that. India has a history of doing such a huge movement of parallel cinema, which is far more powerful than Bollywood, and it has a lot more concrete stories. So that was when filmmakers didn't care about whether it's going to monetize or not. They kept making films, and it was a decade or 2 decades of like parallel cinema, which stood out to us even today.
I mean, you've been in the Bollywood industry and you know about the industry, how the industry functions over here. Yes, we've got lots of money, and especially I guess rides onto the really, really big stars. But convincing the big stars or the big studios is so very difficult when it comes to new technology. Though everybody knows that AR, VR is the future. I mean, they've heard it, they've seen a couple of clips. But when it comes down to investment, Bollywood is really, really slow. And when it comes down to parallel cinema, they've got small budgets. And as much as they would want to invest in it, they really don't have the budgets. Bahubali had a VR for PR. Amir Khan's that Dangal had a VR for PR. And after that, things have kind of like dulled down a bit. It's only when people understand that eventually, I think in another 10 years, possibly your phone and a computer is going to converge into one single wearable device where you will be sitting and experiencing content. You'll be right in the middle of the content. And I guess when the Bollywood or everybody understand that, that's when people will start investing it. Investing in it, because it's when you build these conferences, especially whether it's your AR VR conference or it's these media related, entertainment related conferences. There are all of these big guys, the ones who head the studios. They go over there, give their big talks, jargon, and because what they do is basically it's just updating their LinkedIn profile, and then it's gone. They go back to sleep. So it's I believe it's smaller players who are push driving the ecosystem, rather than these big players. So tell me, you had made this VR film Sandbox of Memory, and it's set against the backdrop of India's partition, right? Can you share more details on that?
That's a piece which is very close to my heart because I am originally from India, so I wanted to create something which resonates with my past because my grandfathers were refugees from the partition of India and they moved from Pakistan to India. And there are a bunch of such families, their grandparents or their great grandparents have moved from one border to the other. And recently, with what's been happening in the country, it really has disturbed me as an artist. So my job as an artist is not to pick up and be an activist and say, oh, everything is going wrong and we should not be talking about religion and communal rights. So this piece specifically is set against the background of the partition of India, and it uses ways of participatory storytelling where I collaborated with someone whose grandfather was a refugee transitioning from Pakistan to India, and the woman in the VR piece had a bunch of objects carried with him when he was coming from Pakistan to India. So he had a suitcase of things like, how people move from one border to other, especially if it's forced or coerced migration that you barely have a few survival things that you carry with yourself. In most possibility, they're the most important things that you want to hang on to when you're transitioning into a new life, when the chances of survival are very low. It was like a treasure hunt to me. I, went through a museum in Delhi, where I'm originally from. I grew up in Delhi. So there's a museum in Delhi called Museum of Material Memory. And I found a bunch of these objects lying in a suitcase in this museum. There were about 13 of these objects which belonged to this gentleman. I had no idea who he was. It was all his physical objects like his passport, his refugee card, the letters he wrote to his wife, the letters he wrote to someone in the United States, a few of his little collectible items. So they were all lying in a suitcase, and I saw that at the museum. And I started talking to the curator, and I realized that it belonged to the granddaughter of the person who had that suitcase. And I reached out to her and I said that this is a very powerful story, and I would like to tell it in VR. And then we replicated. So the whole idea of making a virtual reality piece was interesting to me for a couple of reasons. First of all, going to a museum and looking at something physical, you can talk to a curator and they can tell you a story about the object that you see in the museum. But for me, what I wanted to do was like create a virtual environment in which people can go and see a virtual suitcase with all the objects that they see inside that suitcase in a 3D environment. So I created, a 3D version of that suitcase and those objects. And that's when I collaborated with the person herself, which is why I call it participatory storytelling, because I use forms of documentary, ways of interviewing and documentary storytelling into that piece. And I brought that woman onto the board, and she shared memories of her grandfather when she used to talk to him, that he was alive, and how fondly he used to talk about each of the piece. And so when you go into the piece, the sandbox of memory piece, you actually get into a virtual environment where you see a suitcase, and you can put the headset on, and with the controller you can pick up each of these objects like you physically would in a museum. And when you pick up one of the objects, you hear a story which is told by the woman about her grandfather.
So where is this
No,
available?
so this was made for the Vive. So it's on the HTC Vive store. I've been approached by a couple of museums. We are trying to adapt it into a more accessible versions. So I'm trying to see how I can make it into accessible version so that I don't have to use the HTC Vive headset specifically, and it can be used on any headset. But right now, it's just only available on the HTC Vive store, and you can go there. It's a free app. You can download it, and as long as you connect it to the Vive headset, you should be able to put it on and experience it.
You've been part of the Oculus Launchpad fellow and Oculus for Good, I believe, right?
That's right.
So can you share some experience?
The Launchpad program is a very niche program which recognizes the best content makers in VR in the US and Canada. Unfortunately, it's not open to anyone outside of US and Canada. So I could leverage that opportunity. And, what it does is basically it gives you access to all the high quality, newest equipment that Oculus is producing. So I get to work with all the platforms that Oculus has. It gives me access to a lot of softwares that Facebook has access to, for example, Unity and a bunch of other things. Just to give you an example of simplify the whole process for you, when you're talking about access, a Launchpad is a kind of fellowship that sort of initiates people into building more virtual reality experiences without them spending enough money on it. So I have access to all these expensive things and I don't have to spend money on it. So that's the one big advantage. The other big advantage is that it gives me access, or any of the people who are in the Launchpad program, to meet all the high executives or all the leadership in the VR industry who are doing amazing work and sort of like are the thinking heads behind where this technology is going. And there are about 10 times more creative people outside of the US and Canada who are experimenting with these things. So how do you bring that wave in? How do you collaborate? How do you do all those things?
So you mentioned that Launchpad looks for a collaborative approach, but I mean, I've not seen anything from India. So you think that India is being largely ignored, though there's like a rich tradition of the Bollywood is, it's content heavy. I mean, but somehow there's no representation, at least when it comes to virtual reality. I mean, I'm really happy to see people like you who are representing India and making us proud by being part of these Oculus fellowship or doing some really good content. But do you see that? Do you feel that India is somewhere ignored? I mean, because there's a lot of content creators over here who are doing some really cool and interesting stuff.
So there are two things here. When you're speaking about collaboration, I think the industry here is very open and actually looking towards India a lot. There are two reasons for it, because Silicon Valley gets a lot of its labor from India. So when you're talking about developers, the highest quality engineers coming from the IITs and from India. So there's a flood of people. So it's a very rich terrain of getting very good labor, which knows everything about the technical specifics of creating VR. So that's one thing. So that's a good thing. So when you're talking about content from VR, unfortunately, where are the creatives, from India who are experimenting with it? I've seen 360 content from India, but I think the reason that I don't like that content, or the reason it hasn't picked up by film festivals or hasn't been talked about, the way content makers in India think about virtual reality experiences is the same way they think about film experiences, and which is wrong in my case, because it's a different technology. There is a lot more that goes into it, or there's different techniques that go into it.
Yeah, I do agree that there's lots of bad content creators out there who's not educated, and I do see that there's a lack of an education platform, especially for immersive storytelling. But there are some decent filmmakers who are doing some decent stuff. It's just that yes, they I mean they don't have a platform. India lacks a platform. So you tell me what according to you is the future of storytelling? With VR at this point in time growing, in the near future, there's going to be haptics and stuff like that. There's going to be interactive storytelling, which is going to come in. Black Mirror, I'm forgetting the name of the episode. I mean, introduced interactive storytelling in a big way. So where do you see the future trajectory of storytelling?
The industry in general, and I would urge big players in India to specifically take leadership and onus and set examples. For example, if I were very impressed by the way the indie wave took off in the 90s, later when under Anurag Kashyap and everyone were actually literally fighting against the mainstream Bollywood. And so this entire indie wave came, or like if you were to talk about the 80s, the parallel wave was very much against pushing all the boundaries of Bollywood or the way Bollywood was making stories. So right now is also the time that filmmakers in India should push that boundary and collaborate or convince big players to put money, create very quality experiences which can be acknowledged by the West. Now, again, I would just like to clarify: it's not important, and I'm not a somebody who would propagate and say only if you get acknowledged by the West or big festivals here, so can your content be great? No, I don't agree in that.
How do you see these new technology impacting storytelling? There is this volumetric filmmaking which is just shaping up, where you're going to be part of the film, right? And then there's haptic feedbacks where you will be able to touch the digital, touch the virtual. There is interactive storytelling. Now, how do you think all of these technology are going to bind together? Though in its own, each of these technologies are so insanely awesome. I mean, just imagine a person docking or wearing the headset, and then he or she can actually possibly touch the character. I mean, it's going to be it's going to be mind-numbing, because I mean you'll be inside the story. So but we haven't seen anything like this. Yeah? So how long would something like this technology to come into storytelling take? What would be the impact filmmaking once something like this comes through?
I think a couple of things here, Eddie. I think different forms of storytelling has always been around. Interactive storytelling has been used for marketing and other purposes for the longest time. And if your question is specifically to say how AR, VR, and MR is going to merge together, I don't have an answer to that because I'm not a technologist. So I am here to leverage the technology which is existing and bring that into my creative work. And whether that's going to merge together, yes, I mean, the industry experts would say so. The only reason is that nobody wants to wear those clunky headsets, which we see today. But if you think about virtual reality has been here for forever. I've been fortunate enough to actually have worked and learned from pioneers of VR, and it's been here from the 80s and 90s, where headsets used to look even more clunkier, like huge headsets, to the now that you have Go and things like that. And Apple is actually going to be launching its AR glasses pretty soon in the next couple of months. It's just going to change everything, and nobody's talking about what's going to happen, because once a new technology is launched is when content makers will respond to it. It's already there. So there's no reason that it should all come together, first of all, because they're all different forms and they have different usages. I personally, as a filmmaker, don't see that as, a mass adoption happening, at least in the next 5 years. There are a bunch of issues there because, you can't go to PVR and say, we're creating a virtual reality immersive theater. They have to invest a bunch of money. Well, I mean, is Indian audience ready for that kind of stuff? I don't know. You have to first experiment and see how people are interested. I think Indian audience would be very interested in trying to like see how the headset works, and which is why I feel like putting all these experiences in malls might just sound very gimmicky. But the US started with that, and it has been
Right.
very, very successful. Big malls in the US today and big companies like, Cinemark is a very big theater distribution chain in the US, which invests a lot of money in creating immersive experiences in theaters. And their approach to do it is very, very simple. They have hospitality or guest relations officers who will actually introduce you to a VR experience for $100, or like that's about probably 1,000 or 1,500 bucks. Kids are very excited to experience that. So it's just a 5 minute piece. It's nothing. It's the content wise, it's like it's really bad. And I mean, not in terms of like quality, it's like really interesting, but it's like not, there's no depth in that content. It's just like sitting in a roller coaster and trying to figure it out where it's going. But what you're doing, but you when you put a headset on, on a millennial and trying to tell that kid that, hey, this is the way you experience a roller coaster, you are creating an audience for what's going to come 10 years later.
Right.
And that's a very smart way of doing it, because you've already told that kid, you've opened their eyes and into thinking that this is the way you can think about the world. And once you start doing that, there are opportunities and ways in which you can tell kids in India to start thinking that way. And once they start thinking that way, they will start creating that way.
Completely. I definitely agree with you that yes, in small way you need to push it, and especially I mean put it out there so people see it and they at least understand that this is the future. So any last message to our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, just be open. Lots of times, I have seen that people are very scared of new technologies and emerging technologies for storytelling. And to filmmakers, I would just be brave. Just jump onto the bandwagon. This is just the right time for it. I know we are all, and I'm with you. We are all facing challenges. I may just sound to be in a privileged, accessible position, but I'm with you, and I'm happy to collaborate and share whatever I know, and just be open to collaborating with people outside of your world. Look outside, be open to experimenting with concepts, not just with concepts, but with other things. How can you fuse gaming with filmmaking and create something experience? How can you fuse interactive with filmmaking and create something immersive? So try and think out of the box. Read a lot, see examples of what people have done outside of India. Be bold, be brave. Try to rope in immersive leaders from various industries, not just yours. If you are to talk about the funding, there are a lot of opportunities outside of India who are just dying to get Indian filmmakers on board to create content, because there is dearth of content. So when I say that there is a challenge, there is an opportunity. So if there
Right.
is a challenge that you're facing, make that your opportunity and be one of the best and the first immersive content makers from India. So that's my advice to filmmakers and to people in general who are listening to this interview. I'd just be saying that be open and experimental to newer technologies. Tell your kids to experiment. I know that I'm not a huge person who propagates of being on tablets all the time, but just don't be scared of technology. That's something which looks scary, or it's expensive, or something that think of it as an investment into your future, because you don't want to be left behind. And one of the greatest things about India and China is that they always ride the wave.